Bruiser, Chapter 43, Audacious. Narrator Tennyson. Dad's in the spare room grading papers on Emerson. Mom is out, probably with the Ewok. They're rarely home at the same time except in the evenings. The first things I notice when I enter the room are the suitcases, 2 of them. They've migrated from the basement. A pair of no-nonsense gray rollerboards made of sturdy ballistic nylon. They can catch a bullet and your suit would still stay pressed. The cases are not being packed, but they sit ominously in the corner, waiting for the day, the hour, the moment when Dad will use them and move out. I try not to think about them as I approach my father. Papers from your grad students, I ask him. Yes, he says, although to read these essays, you'd never know. Looking at the essays, I can see handwritten notes between every line. You could create a whole second essay from what he's written back to them. Busy work, I say. Excuse me? You're filling the hours with busy work so you don't have to think about stuff with Mom. I get it. He rubs his forehead like Advil is in order. Is there something you want, Tennyson? I pick up one of the essays and casually pretend to read it. I guess everything's relative, I say. I mean, what's going on in our family is nothing compared to what happened to Brewster Rollins. What's happening to him, I mean. Dad continues red inking his students' work. Sometimes you have to count your blessings. Bronte's all broken up over it. Finally, Dad puts down the paper he's reading. Are they still dating? It surprises me that he doesn't know that, but then, these days, nothing should surprise me. Rather than make assumptions about how much he knows, I bring him up to date. The fact that Brew and his brother have no family, and that Mr. Gorton's ancient criminal record leaves everyone royally screwed. I don't tell him about the healing thing because I'm not an idiot. Once I'm done with the saga of woe, Dad throws me a glance. I think by now he knows what's coming. Then he returns to his work. Too bad we can't help, he says. Actually, we can. Absolutely not. This was okay. I was expecting this. Walls don't fall without effort. We're in no position to take them in, he says. Besides, someone else will. And if not, well, I'm sure social services will take fine care of them. Do you really believe that? Dad sighs. Are you completely clueless, Tennyson? Do you have any idea how bad the timing is? Do you even see what's going on between your mother and me? I see everything, I tell him coldly. I see more than you. And I believe that's true. So then, case closed. That expression, case closed, makes me look over at the 2 suitcases standing against the wall like a pair of hollow tombstones. Maybe taking them in will change things, I suggest to my father. What if putting ourselves out there for someone else is just what we all need, what you and Mom need? Dad sighs. Putting ourselves out for someone else? Now you sound like your sister. Then you'd better listen, because me sounding like Bronte is one of the signs of the apocalypse. And if the end of the world is coming, good deeds could earn you Judgment Day brownie points. He doesn't laugh. His shoulders are still slumped. His attitude has not changed. It's a nice idea, but we can't do it. Now please, I really have a lot of work to do. I sit there a moment more, pretending to weigh the validity of the things he's said. I pretend like I'm getting a clue. You're right, I tell him. I'm sorry I bothered you. I shift in my chair as if I'm getting ready to stand up and leave. Then I say, Mom would never allow it anyway. I can practically hear the hairs on the back of his neck bristling. Then for once your mother and I would be in agreement. Well, yeah, I say, but even if you wanted to take them in, she'd shut it down. He still won't look at me. It's not like your mother makes all the decisions around here. No? He taps his red pen on his stack of essays. Finally, he turns to look at me. You think I don't know what you're doing? What am I doing? You're trying to manipulate me into taking in Brewster and his brother. I don't deny it. Is it working, I ask. He laughs at that. Now all bets are off. I don't know how this is going to play out. Then Dad says, if you want it to work, you need to make me think it's my idea. It was your idea, I say in total deadpan seriousness. You suggested it just a second ago. He laughs again. My mistake. And he shakes his head at my bald-faced audacity. He thinks about it for a moment, or pretends to think about it. I don't know who's toying with whom anymore. Then he says, I'll discuss it with your mother, and we'll make a joint decision. That's all I can ask, I say, that you and Mom give serious thought to a decision that Bronte and I will remember for the rest of our lives. He studies me with a tentative gaze of parental evaluation. You know the one. It's both a little bit proud and a little bit frightened at the same time. Then he says, so shines a good deed in a weary world. I know this one. I snap my fingers and say, Shakespeare, the Merchant of Venice. Actually, my father says, I was thinking Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka, but both answers, A and B, are valid. Mom and Dad have their discussion, and the answer is still no. The Gortons are denied foster parent status less than a week later, and as soon as social services can wade through their own paperwork, Brew and Cody will be sent to the something home for something children, vanishing into the system, never to be seen again. If the wall Mom and Dad have erected is going to fall, it has to fall soon. It's Bronte who completes the erosion process, turning herself into a human tsunami as if it's a secret superpower. Although I'll never admit it to her, I'm in awe and a little bit frightened of her now. I'm there when Jericho falls. It begins with a phone call, which I'm about to pick up, but Bronte, seeing the number on the caller ID, stops me. It rings one more time, and I hear Mom take the call in the hallway. We both listen. Excuse me, you're from whose office? We hear Mom say. An attorney? What's this all about? I don't like the sound of that. When your parents are living on a fraying tightrope, a call from a lawyer is a very bad sign. I turn to Bronte, but the look on her face is more anticipation than dread. Let me get this straight. You're calling for Bronte? Why would you want to speak to my daughter? Mom listens for a moment more, then Bronte whispers to me. They won't tell her a thing. Attorney-client confidentiality. You hired a lawyer? Consulted, Bronte tells me. Consultations are free. The phone call ends abruptly with Mom saying, no, wait, don't hang up, which they obviously do. Since no one in our family sits down for dinner together anymore, Bronte makes a point of eating with Mom. I join them because I love a good fireworks display, but instead it's painfully quiet until Mom says, Bronte, there's something I want to talk to you about. I know that Mom means to broach the topic of the phone call, but instead Bronte blindsides Mom with something else. I've decided to quit the swim team. That's not what What? I've decided I need to get a job instead. I've been told that self-sufficiency is the first step. Mom's still mentally backpedaling, trying to catch a gear. First step toward what? To becoming an emancipated minor. Mom takes a deep breath and lets it out, the dots finally connecting in her head. The fact that Bronte actually called a lawyer makes it hit exceptionally hard. And why would you want that, she says, trying to sound bright and unbothered by it. Well, you have to admit that you and Dad have not exactly been warm and nurturing lately, and the fact that you won't consider helping Bruiser and Cody makes it very, very clear this is not a place I want to be. Then Mom looks Bronte in the eye with the cold gaze of a serious parental warning. Listen to me, because I will only say this once, Bronte, she says. I will not be blackmailed by you. Bronte holds the gaze and strikes back with equal force behind her words. Actions have consequences, Mom. You taught me that. Your actions are no exception. Then she gets up and strides out of the kitchen. Now I'm alone with Mom, who's no longer eating. Wow, I say. And since I really am blown away by what Bronte has just done, I say, wow again, truly speechless. That night I ask Bronte if she really means it. She seems terrified by the question. I don't make idle threats, she says, and I suddenly realize she's not scared of our parents' response. She's scared of her own determination. Because if Mom and Dad don't do something for Brew and Cody, she will quit the swim team, she will get a job, and eventually maybe she will go all the way with her threat to become emancipated. I want to comfort her somehow, but again, all I can say is, wow. Nothing more is said about it until the following day, but then Dad tells Bronte and me that he and Mom are open to considering the possibility of maybe temporarily helping Brew and Cody if no one else steps forward. They schedule an appointment with a social worker who comes by our house the same day. I suppose she's trying to make up for botching things the day Uncle Hoyt died. She must have sold used cars in a previous life, because although Mom and Dad keep insisting all they want is information, the appointment ends with an application, fingerprinting, and a background check. So you'll already be approved as foster parents should you decide to move forward, the social worker says. But I think our parents know full well that there's no closing this door once it's open. God bless you, the social worker tells them. God bless you both. Then Bronte smothers Mom and Dad in kisses in a way she hasn't done since we were little. I love you both so, so much, she tells them. I knew you would do the right thing. Our phone rings a week later. Sometimes when the call is momentous enough, you know exactly who's calling and why, even before you pick up the phone. I've never been one to believe in that kind of intuition, but lately I've had to broaden my mind to a whole range of things I used to dismiss. When that phone rings, I know just as certainly as I know my own name what the call is about, even before Dad says hello. Bruiser, Chapter 44, Cathartic. Narrator Tennyson. The Gortons drive Brew and Cody over early on Wednesday evening. Mrs. Gorton is all teary-eyed as she hugs Cody, as if she's either sending him off to summer camp or handing him over to the agents of Satan. They chat with my parents briefly. Brew shakes my parents' hands tentatively as they welcome him. Cody doesn't bother with such formalities. He's already raced in and has made himself at home. All the while I notice the Gortons never make eye contact with Brewster, and when they tell him goodbye, there's a chilly formality to it, like they'd rather not say anything to him at all. They hurry to their car, they drive off, and there it is. Brewster Rollins, creepy dude deluxe, is now my foster brother. This is the first time we're seeing Brew face to face since his uncle died. Not a big deal for me, but I know it's a big deal for my sister. He stands at the threshold sheepishly, holding a small suitcase that contains all the worldly possessions he chose to salvage from the farmhouse. He faces Bronte in our foyer in a guarded standoff in which nothing much is said. Hi. Hi. You okay? Yeah, you? Yeah. Walking on eggshells cannot begin to describe the moment, and the dinner that follows is the very definition of discomfort, or at least it starts that way. The mood is set right away by Cody, who can't stop talking about how they found Uncle Hoyt. He was all pale, like the blood been sucked out of him. To hear him tell it, you'd think the man got attacked by a chupacabra, and I'm sure the story gets wilder every time he tells it. By now, Cody has had a haircut, compliments of the Gortons, and he looks semi-civilized. Still, he keeps shaking his head like he's trying to fling hair out of his face. The habit's not going to go away for a good while. And his eyes, says Cody, they was open and all bulgy, like he saw a ghost. It's very sad, Bronte says. Would anyone like some milk? Did you hear everything in the house was all broke up? Cody says. Nothing left, like he blew it apart with his mind before he died. That's enough, Cody, Bruiser says under his breath, but my mom gently pats Cody's hand. Talk about it all you want, Cody, she tells him. It's very cathartic to talk it out. I can see Cody mouthing the word cathartic with a grimace, like it's a verbal Brussels sprout. And I wonder if our parents are going to inflict him and Brew with a daily power word, too. If nothing else, this has forced Mom and Dad to sit at the same dinner table again. And Mom has actually cooked a meal. Okay, so it's lasagna from Costco, but at least she turned on the oven and put it in. I know you've had a rough time of it, Mom says, mostly to Brew, but from here on in, you don't have to worry about anything. More lasagna, says Bronte. I think she believes that if everyone's mouth can be kept full, there's less chance that someone will say something unfortunate. How's your basketball coming? Dad asked Brew. Haven't played since that time with you guys. Well, we'll have to do it again. It's as if our parents have begun a new competition to see who can be more compassionate to troubled youth. I hope you boys are okay with the guest room, Mom says. And I say, so where will you sleep, Dad? I just meant it as a simple question, but then realized that this is one of those unfortunate moments Bronte has been trying to avoid. I shove some lasagna in my mouth, but it's too late. I glance to Mom, who fusses with her napkin rather than look at me. The fact that no one has discussed with Bronte and me how this is all going to work is yet another symptom of the down communications lines within our family. Well, Tennyson, says my father, I suppose I could room with you. He tries to be flip and funny when he says it, but he can't mask the tension thundering in just behind his words. Sure, whatever, I say. I think this is the first time in years I've used the expression, whatever, as it's on our family's list of banned slang. But when I say it, there's an audible breath of relief from both of my parents. Then Bronte says, you and Mom have shared a bed for 17 years. I don't think it'll kill you to share it a little while longer. He takes a few moments to chew, and then Dad says, true. I can sense no emotion in his response either way. Bronte, who was so determined to shut everyone else up just a minute ago, is still not done. I mean, we have a situation, and we should all make the best of it. Isn't that right, Mom? We'll work things out the best of our ability, my mother says. She should really run for Congress. Now you know this isn't permanent, Dad reminds us all. Yes, sir, says Brew. But we are more than happy to have you here for as long as it takes, Mom adds. Yes, ma'am, says Brew. No one in memory has ever called my parents sir or ma'am. I'm sure they will find a more appropriate family who'd be willing to take both of you in. And, add Dads, who aren't quite as strange as us. Don't worry, Brew says, looking over at Bronte with a grin. I like strange. She gives him a playful love hit, which sends Dad to prickly, uncomfortable places. The guest room has its own bathroom, Dad says. It's convenient. You'll never need to go upstairs. Bronte drops her fork on her plate for effect. My God, Dad, why don't you install motion sensors on the stairs to make sure he doesn't come up at night? Don't think we haven't thought of that, dear, says Mom in her I can be as impertinent as you voice. And for a moment, just the slightest moment, things feel almost normal. Bruiser, Chapter 45, Palpable. Narrator Tennyson. An hour after dinner, I can hear Mom and Dad in their bedroom discussing Cody and Brew related details. Their bedroom. I like the fact that I can say that again. This is the most Mom and Dad have said to each other in weeks. It must be a relief to have someone else's crisis to take the place of their own. I suppose surrogate stress is a kinder, gentler form of trauma. As I listen to their muffled voices, I feel confident that things will be okay. Bru and Cody have been here for just a couple of hours, and already their presence is making a difference. I can only hope that these good feelings stay. Cody has already taken root in the family room and plays video games. Mom removed all games that remotely suggest violence and death. But Cody's doing a good job of making harmless cartoon characters suffer in fresh and inventive ways. This game sucks, he says, but I like it. Bronte's in the spare room, which I guess isn't spare anymore, talking to Bru in hushed tones. They stop the moment I enter. I was just briefing Bru on the State of the Union, Bronte informs me. As in the nation, as in our parents. I'm sure he can see it for himself. There's an unrest in Bru's face that borders on sheer terror, so palpable I can almost feel it like heat from a furnace. It stands in stark contrast to my own growing sense of well-being. I wonder if Bronte sees it too, or if she's just so happy he's here, she can't see how it's affecting him. The question is why? What is he so worried about? I'd better go, Bronte says, before Dad finds me in here and decides to lock me away in a tower. She gives Bru a quick kiss and leaves. I don't think she ever notices just how deep his fear goes. Do you think she's still mad at me for not calling her right away? I think about how to best answer him. She wasn't mad, I say, just worried. I didn't mean to worry her. I put up my hand to stop him before he launches into an apology. I'm sure Bronte understands, but she's a chronic fixer. She freaks out if she's not allowed to repair a situation. She couldn't fix this. Actually, she did, I remind him. I mean, you're here, aren't you? Then Bru looks down, nervously picking at his fingernails, and asks the million-dollar question. Do your parents know about the stuff I do? I shake my head. No, and unless they start smacking each other with 2x4s, I don't think they'll find out. But if they get a bad cut and it suddenly goes away, let's hope they don't, I tell him. He unpacks his bag slowly and methodically. People in school are talking about what happened, aren't they? I know he's worried about going back to school. I'm about to tell him that there's no problem, but I don't want to lie to him, so I just shrug like I have nothing to say. They think I killed him, don't they? I can't escape the question, so I tell him the truth as tactfully as I can. There are some imbeciles who have come up with their own version of how your uncle died, I say, but most people aren't that stupid. Still, they might be a little standoffish. I'm used to that. He crosses the room to put some clothes in the dresser, and I notice he's limping. In fact, he'd been favoring his right foot ever since he arrived. It's different from the limp he had when he took Bronte's sprained ankle. I wonder what that's all about, but I don't want to ask. He looks into the open drawer for a moment, his thoughts elsewhere. Tennyson, he says, I didn't kill my uncle. And I can see how desperate he is for me to believe it. I never thought you did. Yet he doesn't seem relieved. Maybe that's because I'm not the one he's trying to convince. As the conversation is headed toward dangerous rapids, I make a quick course correction. So, how were the Gortons? I didn't like them, Bru says. Yeah, they did seem a bit cold. Bru closes the dresser drawer. No, I mean I couldn't like them, because if I did, I'd have osteoporosis, arthritis, varicose veins, and who knows what else. It takes me a moment to understand what he's saying. Then the truth dawns on me. If he had liked them, he'd have ended up taking on all their infirmities, even the ones he didn't know about. I had to do stuff to make them hate me right away, Bruce says. Steal things, break things on purpose. It was easier to dislike them if they didn't like me first. Sort of a preemptive strike, I say. Only now do I begin to really understand how difficult it must be to carry the weight of his strange ability. He has to live his life in an emotional bubble, never caring, or he'd never survive. It's a huge deal that he's let Bronte and me into that bubble. I think back to the very first time he shook my hand, how he hesitated as we stood there in his kitchen. I had no idea what a huge decision he was making at that moment. Well, don't start breaking stuff around here, I tell him, or you and I are going to have to revisit that black eye. I won't, he says. I mean, you do like our family, right? He hesitates, just as he did that time he shook my hand. I feel like the fate of the world is resting on his answer, and I don't know why. Yes, he finally says. Yes, I do. Bruiser, Chapter 46, Subcutaneous. Is it true? Because I won't believe it unless I hear it from your mouth. Did the Bruiser actually move in with you? Yeah, I tell Katrina, him and his brother. It's lunchtime on Monday, Bruce's first day back at school. Katrina sits across the table from me, gaping like she might expel the salad she just ate. That's just insane. It wasn't my idea, I tell her, and get mad at myself for lying. Why do I feel I have to lie to her about it? Well, I hope you lock your door at night because I don't want to be interviewed on CNN or something about how my boyfriend was murdered in his sleep. I squirm on the bench, feeling like I've developed a nest of ants under my skin. But it's just Katrina. Leave the guy alone, I say. He's not so terrible. No? Well, Ozzy Odell says. I don't care what Ozzy Odell says. He's a moron. Katrina's speechless, like she's the one I just insulted. I'm sorry, she says, finally realizing that bruiser bashing is not a sport I engage in anymore. If it'll make you happy, I'll tell everyone what a perfectly, wonderfully normal guy the Bruiser is. I wonder if she even remembers his actual name. Did I know his name before Bronte started dating him? You don't have to do that either, I mumble. She cocks her head and studies me, screwing up her lips. Listen, I know what you're going through. When my parents got divorced, I was all stressed out too. My parents are not getting divorced. Divorced, separated, whatever. The point is, temporary insanity goes with the territory, so I understand why you're so snippy, and it's okay. Hearing that just makes me feel more snippy, because maybe she's partly right. But on the other hand, my parents have stopped fighting, and there's a sense of balance returning to the house. Well, maybe not balance, but a kind of cushioning, like we're all inside a big bounce house, and no matter how hard we hit the wall, we'll just rebound. I'm fine with my parents, I tell her, and they're fine too. She sighs. Denial is normal. You'll get over it. She gives me a slim grin and a knowing nod, then says, So, are we studying tonight? Not tonight, I tell her. I've got too many things going on at home, which is true on one level and false on another. I don't have anything specifically that I have to do, but lately I've been feeling more and more like a homebod, not wanting to go out. And when I am out, I want to get home as quickly as possible. Maybe Katrina's right. Maybe the turmoil in my family is affecting me. All I know is that, in spite of it, when I'm home I feel safe, like nothing can hurt me.